The Reverend and the Rabbi, Faith and Eggs. Reverend Bill Crawford, Senior Pastor of Larchmont Avenue Church, and Rabbi Jeff Serkman, Senior Rabbi of Larchmont Temple, are friends and colleagues in our community who get together regularly for breakfast and always lively discussion. Join the Reverend Bill and Rabbi Jeff at their latest meal at the Nautilus Diner. Enjoy a breakfast of faith and eggs with the Reverend and the Rabbi.
Rabbi Jeff, my brother.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
At our diner?
At our diner, indeed. We've never really talked about it in the possessive, but
Well,
I mean, it's a heartfelt thing. We don't own this place. Hey, if we own this place, no. But it's a wonderful place. Really, a gathering
Bill
place.
and Jeff's.
Yeah.
Jeff and Bill's.
Yeah. It rates on the plates.
Crosser. I'm trying to think. What do we call it? We'd have to have some kitschy name.
That would be good.
Some kitschy name. Wouldn't that be good? Wouldn't
that be good? Yeah. Well, we're thinking about that. Write in your suggestions, viewers, because we love the Nautilus Diner, but maybe there could be a subtitle. Keep the Nautilus.
You know what?
A subtitle.
Maybe don't write in your suggestions because I want the food here. I don't think we could do.
Yeah.
Justice to the diner.
No. Well, if having a diner means that we do the cooking, I think maybe we want to pause.
That would not.
Yeah,
that would not work.
Yeah. We're glad to add our panache and invitation and welcome. But
we can be the front people.
We want to keep the kitchen staff here.
The front guys,
and the wait staff.
No, and we need we need Ruben and Angel and
Cesar.
No, we need our people.
And Abel,
Abel.
And everybody with a biblical name, we're going to hire.
That's true.
Or something.
That's true. Oh, Jeremiah, hey.
There you go. So, good morning to you, my brother.
Good morning. It's good
Here
to see
it
you.
is. Oh my gosh. It's November 2nd.
Is it really? Gosh.
2017.
Yeah. All we know is it is the first day of the reign of the Houston Astros. I want to say Mazel Tov.
Really?
To the Astros. Way to go.
Oh my God.
Great 7-game
And whenever
victory.
you have a 7-game series, I mean, think about the creation story. In the 7th day.
Too much.
In the 7th day, the Astros win.
Hey, Cesar, how are you?
Yeah. Oh, good morning.
Good to see you.
Here we go. Coffee for sure. Okay. And water. Water would be
Have a
great.
go coffee, a little half and half.
Yeah.
And you know what you're thinking about?
I do. Actually, I'd like to go with 2 poached eggs in a cup.
I know it.
Home fries, rye toast. Yeah. Thank you.
Corned beef hash, burnt, 2 eggs, over easy. No potatoes,
There we go.
no toast.
Wow.
Thank you. Look at that. Boom.
Yeah. We've kind of shifted from the omelet with the cucumbers and the
Yeah, well, you know
olives.
what? For the corned beef hash is a winter thing. Like if I could eat oatmeal, with my personal, health nuances, I would eat oatmeal because to me that would be
I love
heaven.
oatmeal.
That'd be heaven. Yeah, on a day. But it's not that cold and it's getting warm today.
Oatmeal 12 months a year for me.
You do really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
but
fact, I left some oatmeal on the stove because I was a little late in getting here after the gym and the whole bit.
Well, because you get up with the fishermen.
I do. But I love oatmeal with some additives like fruit, like almonds, and even like a little flax seed.
Yeah,
Oh
flaxseed.
my gosh! I'm just saying that makes me feel healthy.
Yeah, that's a
Don't you
little
think?
too healthy. By
There we
the way.
go. There we go. Too healthy.
Yeah.
But burnt.
It's biblical, by the way. It's biblical.
There we go.
Very biblical.
There we go. What's the deal with the burnt corned beef hash, though?
You know what? I like a crispy side. I like a crispy feel to my. You see, I have people in the audience. I was going to say that people in the congregation are shaking their heads.
Amen.
So let's just, before we let go of the Astros,
Sure,
just want to say,
Astros.
here's the cool thing about the Astros. Was it 3 years ago?
Sports Illustrated.
In the
They
June
predicted
issue,
them.
put Springer on the cover and says the champions in 2017.
And MVP Springer.
Yeah. Now, how crazy is that?
That is wild.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about real sports prognostication.
That's really awesome.
That was awesome. Wasn't that cool?
And shouting out to our to our congregation, and the community, we have some people in our neighborhood who have been beloved and on staff at Sports Illustrated. I mean, one who comes immediately to mind, God bless her, is Bambi Wolf.
Yep.
Wife of Steve and mother of Bo and John and Eve and Elizabeth, passed away this past summer.
Yes.
But for about 20 years and more was on staff at Sports Illustrated and basically did more for And the obit in the pages of the Sports Illustrated said this, did Bambi Wolf for women reporters in sports than anyone ever.
That's
anyone
cool.
Ever. Yeah, yeah.
It's very cool.
And so, gosh, Sports Illustrated, really some prognosticators back then.
And what we want to say, especially, thanks, Cesar.
Yeah. You know, Cesar, I just want to say, I don't think we have enough half and half here. You know,
it's half and half, but thank you very much.
It's like
This man doesn't know from whence he comes.
20 for you, 20 for
South
me.
Philly. And,
okay, here we go.
But after all Houston's been through, I mean, with the trauma of the devastation that we've seen the community go through.
Right.
I mean, it's just great
to
rally behind a team, to be uplifted by the win. And it's more than it's more than a sports win. And we know sports are larger than life in a lot of ways. It was Correa. So their amazing cleanup hitter, I saw this morning, and I didn't see it last night because I may have fallen asleep, proposed to his longtime fiance right after the game, right after they won. So
was
Carlos
she there?
Correa.
Was she there? Was this
No, she was there.
Oh
She
my
was in the
God.
first row, and
Oh my
he went
gosh.
over, he knelt down, he proposed. I mean, come on.
Oh my
It's like
God.
a moment that's
my
just
gosh.
so uplifting. So on all
It's
these
a scene
fronts.
from a movie.
Yeah, no, it
like,
was great.
Like The Natural. And
Like The Natural, like that movie with Jimmy Fallon about the Boston Red Sox. What's it called? It's a great movie. It's a great movie.
You're not talking about the Cleveland Indians thing.
No. This is an actual movie. Jimmy Fallon is a Red Sox fan.
We've got our research department here.
It's very funny. Very
Okay.
funny. It's
Mike
cute.
Charles in the research room.
There you go.
We're going to get this in just a moment. So stand by, everybody. In the meantime, I understand, talk about standing by.
Yes.
The fans in Houston assembled in the stadium, thousands of them, to watch the game.
How awesome
How
is
cool
that?
is that? You got to love that. I mean,
That's just what should happen.
yeah.
Just what should happen.
And then more in the news. See, we got the sports pages.
We have,
but
we have lots in the news.
I mean, this is,
Unfortunately,
again,
we always have lots in the news.
The date is November 2nd, and oh my gosh, on October 31st.
Yeah, oh my gosh is really the word.
On a pathway that's familiar to many of us. I happen to, a treat for me on a day off, if I can, and if I get a day off and I'm able to do this, is to take my bike to the Upper West Side Union Seminary and take it off the car and ride down the bikeway.
How nice is that?
The bike path.
That's lovely.
Right down the Hudson, and I go all the way down to Battery Park, and then circle around to the.
That's a ride.
It's a great ride.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful ride, and lo and behold, on October 31st at 3:05, there was this heinous act of terror, absolute terror.
Oh my God! Yes.
And the fatalities of eight folks.
Mostly tourists.
Well, there were the five guys in a group of about 6 or 7 who are pictured on the front page of today's November 2nd New York Times. They were all graduates of a special high school in Argentina 30 years ago, and these guys got together for a special trip. They were killed, mowed down. There was a Belgian tourist, and then 2 Americans, both guys, youngish guys, 20 and 30 something, who worked around those parts. One of them was a 32-year-old guy, Rutgers grad, who was giving up smoking, and so every day, instead of a smoking break, no, he had a bike. And was on the bike path. On the bike path.
Oh my gosh.
God bless them all, and here we are in the aftermath. I mean, a city that rises up and wants to rise up strong, even in defiance. I mean, later that day, here was the Halloween parade, just blocks from that location.
Yeah, excuse me. Yes.
But to be vigilant in a time that is this a new normal, Rabbi Jeff? I mean, where are we?
Yeah, you have to hope it's not a new normal. But the fact that it infiltrates these shores, we've seen it around the world. Around the world, we've seen, and now it seems like this is a copycat. It's an isolated, self-generated, what do they call it? Self-radicalized. But the fact that this is something that's possible in our world, and that is somehow encouraged whether it's ISIS extremist websites or absurd. Now, how do we protect against it? That's the challenge.
Right.
In Israel, I'll just say in Israel, it doesn't always work because it's Israel. It's there's posters on the bus and there's chafetz chashud, suspicious object, suspicious. So, if you see something, say something. 40 years ago, in Israel, that was the case, and to this day, the bomb squad, they are hypersensitive. And everybody's sort of on vigilance, on alert. I heard O'Neill, our police chief in New York City, say this morning, if you have any doubt, trust your gut. So maybe that should be the new saying. We need a new saying, right? If in doubt, trust your gut. So just say something. I think we all have to sort of protect the public trust. It relies on us.
Yeah. I wonder about fear. I mean, is if you have any doubt, trust your gut. Is that just short of living in fear?
Walk around in fear.
Yeah, because I think continually we here is the cry, and from people who are outspoken right away, and we've heard an array of folks, across political office, elected office, and in the aftermath of this. But to not live in fear is a call, and can we?
Yeah.
I was struck by several, in the aftermath. Here's 305, the incident. Same time that the school was letting out. There are about 3 or 4 schools around that area. Here are kids in Halloween costumes at a middle school.
My God.
And they're basically held at the door, go back inside for 2 hours. What do you say to children? And some parents elected not to tell them that. And they had their costumes on, and so off they went to do whatever they were going to do in the remaining time of Halloween Day. Even some of them on the streets, the rock and roll action in Greenwich Village on the Halloween parade. My beloved son Graham, was planning to go down there. He had a great Doctor Who costume, but he held off on that. My daughter Mari works in the city. She basically held tight and didn't go in that direction. But so many just said no to fear.
You have to say no to fear. And my colleague Rabbi Amiel Hirsch from Stephen Weiss Free Synagogue wrote a beautiful piece for the New York Board of Rabbis, which was shared, and he mirrored what the Israeli attitude is. I'm apologizing. Go back to Israel, but from post '60s on, especially, Israel has sort of lived in this state, and he said we will not fear. And he said not only will we not fear, this will not deter us one iota from living our lives. In Israel, what happens? I still remember the Pizzeria Rimini bombing in the middle of Jerusalem, down near the post office, or on the road to Jaffa, on Shar Yafo, it was a bombing that killed a number of folks, innocent, people walking the streets, Arab Israelis, Jewish Israelis, others, Americans, and they cleaned it up in 2.5 hours, and the pizzeria was open the next day, or maybe the day after. Why? Because Israel says, we go on. You will not deter us. You can do whatever you want to do. Now, of course, what kind of treatment is this? What does it say about the nature of being human in the world? That's the challenge.
Well, and here we are. I mean, we're living. I mean, you and I met each other just before 9/11.
This is true.
And there we were together with 1,500 other neighbors here in Larchmont, Mamaroneck, right there at the Bema at the Larchmont Temple. And that was, the September 12th, 2001. In the time since then, props to LMC-TV and Mike and Lake Charles. We've been right here on air, and the journey continues. In the time since then, we have been in a post-9/11 world. Here, even in the past 12 months, we've had Barcelona, we've had Nice, France, we've had the Westminster Bridge in London, and there are more.
Well, we've had
and is this something of the new normal? I mean, the one note that everybody, recognizes is, this is the first act of terror in such a fashion. Of course, we can talk about Las Vegas and other things too, but as in an ISIS or Islamic militant, whatever the phrase might be, attack on our soil since 9/11. And ironically, within 2 blocks of the World Trade Tower. 3,000 people. Then,
or maybe not so ironically. Or maybe not so ironically.
But I mean, what of this new normal? The vigilance is kind of like, yes, you mentioned Israel in the past 40 years. No other country on earth has been as security conscious and security able. Yet here we are now. One of the things notable about the aftermath of the vehicular attack.
Yes.
And now that's a new term, isn't it? Is that the police action has been rapid and fast. And you know why? Because in that particular zone, the presence of cameras and surveillance has been like nothing else in the time since 2011.
Right.
So if you saw some of those shots, I mean, photo shots, please.
Right.
God,
yes,
not
photo
gun
shots. We understand. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All righty. They were, the camera takes on what was happening, as well as the guy himself.
Yeah, we saw the guy jumping out of the truck and
with the ludicrous. I mean, he had a toy gun and a paintball gun. Yikes! What of that? What of that?
Yeah, he followed the manual or the website of ISIS to a T.
Right.
He asked if he could have a fly an ISIS flag in his hospital room.
And yes, your note about, John Miller on CBS, the police reports talk about this, the surveillance and the follow-up was quick. They looked at his cell phone. He had about 3,800, pictures, the notes and connections with the ISIS propaganda.
Right.
Not only that, he rented a Home Depot truck on October 9th. He went over the route. The plan was to come down the West Side Highway and apparently turn where he turned, except he hit the school bus. He was headed for the Brooklyn Bridge. This is rehearsed. This is
Awful.
a singular, the term lone wolf,
How
so he's
awful.
not part of a cell. And that's another story, because in the time of the new normal, the new normal looks like, Afghanistan and Iraq have military presence from the U.S. and others, and so, there's combat or pressure in those places such that cells or groups aren't operative. But here comes the propaganda and the issuance of these directives and info for people like this guy, a 28-year-old guy.
29,
who,
I think,
who has a wife and 2 kids. Having lived in Tampa, now most recently in this, whatever the location was in New Jersey, Nick's.
An Uzbekistani, immigrant.
Right.
And is the response, let's shut down all immigration. Let's make sure that, what's the opposite of merit-based immigration? It was the George H.W. Bush Act that was passed back in 1991.
Right. And somebody said, the president, that this was a Chuck Schumer, creation. No. It was passed initially by Bush, in the aftermath of terror attack, and also it was endorsed by Obama going forward. Too easy to jump to, as we hear, some political positions and usage of this event, for some particular position.
What it says is we have to work harder to build bridges, to talk to people, to listen to people, to understand that there will be fringe elements of society, but to be attuned to them, and to reach out to the people who are not the same as we are as often as we can, in order to build, pathways of understanding so that we can actually talk to each other, so we can appreciate difference, so that it doesn't become us and them. Which is so easily, it so easily can become if we put up those kind of walls. It's hard. This is no easy time. It just brings back all those overwhelming feelings. But we go on. The spirit of life continues. With so much else going on, in our world and certainly in society. Down in D.C. and Washington, a full slate of activities You know, well, here we go. Here we go. Before we get to Washington D.C.
Full slate of activities. How about a full plate of wonderful breakfast?
A full plate of activities.
From
there we go.
slate to plate.
Look at that. Look at that. The best.
You rate at the Nautilus Diner.
Which is great.
Soon to have a new name, maybe, or a subtitle. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Thank you so very much, Cesar.
Cesar, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm good.
Cesar is covering the room. You know, for the first time, this is a historical moment. He took the order from that side, moved around the table. I think there could be a dance routine on the way here at the Nautilus Diner.
True. It's true. And look at this. Just to note, this is a triple. I got triple eggs here.
Oh my God.
They gave me 3. Look at this. They gave me 3. I want you to know, which is eggs in the shape of a heart. You know. So I just want to say, look at that. Perfect.
We're doing the Rorschach test with the eggs. Okay, that's excellent. You know.
If you want Reverend Bill to stop punning, you could call in.
Right.
1-800-Punaholics.
I'm recovering, not so recovered punaholic. Oh, here we go, a message.
Fever Pitch. What a great movie that was. What a great movie.
And what a great
with Jimmy
title.
Fallon.
What
Fever
a great
Pitch.
Title. Hey, and wouldn't it be great to be in a baseball movie together, like a comedy thing? You, me, Jimmy Fallon.
I would love that.
I would love that too.
Yep. Yeah.
Bread, my brother.
I know we're gonna break bread. I gotta wait to go for my eggs till we break bread.
Yeah.
You do the blessing.
So here we are.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
And thanks be to God for the bread of life and the bread we share. At the heart of which that word pan is at the middle of the word companionship. Say it all together. Companionship.
I want to tell you right now, Reverend Bill is nothing if not predictable. You know, or he grows on you. He's the sense of comfort. You know, Reverend Bill could, as far as I'm concerned, be the national spokesperson for Presbyterians around the country. Because
I would aspire to something more beyond parochial or denominational.
Reverend Bill could be the new NBC guy, the news anchor, because he has such a trust. And you believe him, and he's sincere and authentic.
But not without you, my brother. I mean, you know, what's happening here?
I would be Al Roker. I would be his Al Roker.
No.
I would come in.
I think we would have a great time. And by the way,
really good ties.
You know, I hope they're watching at WABC with our friend Bill, you know. Have we got the call back?
No, but I saw
Liz Feld.
Liz Feld.
Lovely. Thanks to Liz, former mayor. Here in Larchmont, I mean, she helped us make that connection
and
with
Liz,
Bill.
I said, are we ever going to get a call back?
Yeah.
And she said, of course you're going to get a call back.
Oh.
He almost called you.
Promises.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. But I mean, if I just want to make a promise on air. If NBC calls me to do a talk show, I'm not going without you, my brother.
I love that.
Okay.
You're the best.
Okay,
You're the
really,
best.
really,
You're the best.
really.
No,
So there we go.
I appreciate that. We stand by.
Yeah.
Stand by me.
Amen. There's a great song, Benny King. When the
but
nights
it's Ben E. King, right?
are cold and the moon is bright and whatever, Mike. What's the next line? That's not the C. I won't cry. I won't shed a tear just as long as you stand by me. Here we go. Darling, stand by me. Whoa. Let's move to sports. Let's move to theology. Someplace. Let's move. Okay, but you know. What you see here, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, is the real thing. I mean, we are friends. I appreciate the spirit, the playfulness, and you know, the concern. I love concern. I love this guy.
Not because he's the minister, by the way, but because I love this man. Because he's a little nuts. I just want to tell you.
You know what we say in our tradition? Write this down, Jim. Meshugana.
Meshugana.
There we go.
So Jewish. He's so Jewish.
Oh my goodness.
I was before the sort of tragedy that we've experienced in New York City. Thinking about our show, I was thinking, are we gonna? What are we looking at with the future of the administration and all of these indictments and all this? It worries me. I don't want to see anybody fall. I don't want to, but is it really possible that whether it's collusion or close to collusion? I mean, are we in a sort of a new Nixonian era?
You know, I mean, well, Nixonian takes
and
us
Nixonian
a
would
path.
actually be easier to handle.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because Nixonian, we could talk about history, points in time, et cetera. We didn't have cyberspace, then like we do now.
True.
Look at what we have now. Look at Equifax, look at WikiLeaks, you look at, Julian Assange, and then, here is this stuff that we hear and read about, even in recent days, with regard to Russia. And tampering and tinkering, not just here, not just with our government and election. Facebook, yes, we can talk about Equifax. God only knows if there's an overlap there, but also with governments in the German election, in companies and corporate matters. I mean, the stuff, the stuff that's proffered, and not only that, so here you have the raid on that information, but then somebody has been talking about fake news. That's a term, you've heard that, haven't you? Fake news. And so what's the construct with that? I mean, here are people messing around with the technology in the cyberspace, okay, like in Russia, who are cobbling and constructing messages that have a slant and an angle to them about candidates, about products. I mean, what does that mean? What does that portend? You gotta figure. I mean, Barack Obama in his waning days in office noted this. He seems to have sat on some information because he didn't want to appear too political, but it had an effect on our democracy and something sacred like our election.
Yeah.
It has an effect on our government. He needed to say something, didn't he? Mind you, he's a Democrat. Here comes the new president. Mind you, he's a Republican. For the good of the republic, for the concern that we have as a country, please let's not deny. Now, it's taken how long for people in the White House and other corridors of government to admit and accept that the Russians have been messing with it?
Especially with a guilty, with Papadopoulos saying, yes, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, he had to. He had to. Otherwise, what would he have had to contend with in terms of Robert Mueller and prosecution and legal defense? I mean, some people are saying, and the other name is Paul Manafort.
Yes.
We now know that he was under some arrest as it took place in the summer, but the legal costs for these guys are huge. So are they going to plea out? I mean, what's up with that?
With a president that has business ties that are considerable, and of course, there wasn't a divestment of his business interests, but rather a handing over to his family to handle.
And how can I say this too? I mean, even as we speak, November 2nd, 2017, a lot of tax bill considerations are there before Congress, that are going to affect the American people. What about everybody paying their taxes? What about the President of the United States, who's paid some, yes, but have taxes and information on that been disclosed?
No.
I mean, some states around this union are basically saying you can't be on the ballot as a candidate without disclosing your taxes. Ironic, is it not?
But the president,
Yeah. I guess, and here's it. Let me just download this to say, even friends before God and these witnesses with my brother Rabbi Jeff.
Yes.
It really beleaguers me, it saddens me, it angers me, that at every turn, with every pulse of the news cycle, stuff like this, questions of moral authority.
Right, and there you go.
Questions of integrity.
There you go.
Questions of the state of the office. Why is, Teddy Roosevelt, was mild compared to what we see in the bully pulpit.
Yeah.
Emphasis bully.
Yeah.
What about integrity and grace?
Yeah.
Why does a president have to go tit for tat with the mother of a fallen soldier?
Yeah, no.
Why not proceed with grace?
Well, grace is not a word. And by the way, this is not when we're talking about the nature of the Trump family involvement, this is not a Democratic issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is an issue of our democracy, of who we are as an American people, a republic for all. So there is something crucially important about the due process of justice and about our democracy and the democratic system to be able to unfold without without all of the wrenches that seem to be thrown in that system. And so standing up for Chuck Schumer, I think rightfully so, to point out this is not a Schumer act, as Trump accused him. And again, it was George Bush who recognized with grace the importance of opening up our immigration process to make the quota system less difficult for people to gain entry.
You know, and not only that, I mean, there's an element of grace. I mean, let's, look at some words grace applies in terms of leadership and steps. Remember 9/11, and George W. Bush and George the Jr. was in office. It was September 12th. We gathered at Larchmont Temple. Do you know where President Bush was that day? He was at an Islamic temple.
Yep.
He went and stepped, literally, figuratively, across the street, to go to, an Islamic gathering, to affirm and recognize that it's not, as some people have said, a wicked and evil religion. Now, we need to parse the text and look at what, our traditions are saying. And so he reached out and connected.
Hindsight is 20/20, because I'll tell you right now, in the wake of, and this is before the indictments came down, that Bush 2 gave a beautiful, at the Bush Institute, gave a really beautiful address. I think it was the keynote. And I got to listen to it. I was home recovering from a little minor procedure, and I got to listen to it live. I was in tears. And then for the president to tweet after that, he didn't understand what he was saying. The words were too big for him or something. Right. Come on.
Yeah, and by the way, the president took time to take aim at that same day or the day after at Senator John McCain, who had a similar address at the Constitution, the Center for the Constitution in Philadelphia. About our national identity and the values and standards, of our republic, to uphold them in terms of not the parochial, but the world, the world about us. It was both of those addresses, McCain and Bush, were really quite good. And here comes, the exposition of those two leaders was really quite significant and profound. Leaders indeed.
Leaders.
As opposed to, a tweet or Twitter, message on 140 characters slamming them both.
Cowardly.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. If I were president, or if you were president, let's see if this would hold. I would invite those guys to the White House. Could we not talk? What does that mean? What about some rapprochement, even if it's not a publicity moment, What of that, as opposed to slamming and dissing?
Yeah.
How is this TV program going? What's our...
Well, right now, I would say, we've made our statement. Yeah. You know how we feel.
Yeah.
Because, did I mention how good these corned beef hash and eggs
are? Really. And are they burnt enough for you?
They really are.
Yeah,
they really are. And I know you want to taste it. Come over here.
I would. This is kind of like this is kind of a comedic respite. This is totally unrehearsed, and I know the pros would do something like this. It's kind of like we would look at our producer and say, "Oh, you guys are going off. Let's come back here, but talk about the corned beef hash." And so here we are. I'm going to do this. I love those cooking shows. It's kind of like, here's Kelly and Charlie. It's kind of like,
too. What is it about?
How do you make that? How do you make that? Oh, let me taste this. That is good corned beef hash. Really. So can I insert a quote? This is kind of totally out of sync.
Oh, please.
Because I'm trying to move off this, but back to some of the things we were saying. I think of FDR, fear. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. There's something profound and timeless about that. And then, the O'Neill, Police Chief O'Neill quote, in terms of, be on the alert. Here's a word from Jesus. Jesus in the New Testament, talking to the disciples, he said, I send you out as sheep to the wolves. Therefore, be as wise as serpents and gentle as doves. Wise as serpents, gentle as doves. Profound stuff. It's kind of like, here's being streetwise, ladies and gentlemen. Here's not the pejorative rap or knock on the serpent, but to be wise, to be alert. What do you see? What are you missing in what you see?
And I would say the greatest counter to this is to build bridges.
There we go.
This coming Sunday, is that true? This coming Sunday at Watchpoint Temple, we're getting together with members of the Straight Gate Church, largely Black Pentecostal, my friend Bishop Powell. And we're going to have a Sunday afternoon dialogue, a dessert dialogue, coffee conversation on hate. On what's the hate we've experienced in our lives? How do we overcome that? What do we do in the face of hate? What happens when people don't accept us for who we are or judge us by the color of our skin rather than the content of our character? And we're going to have an honest conversation. It begins when we sit down and listen to each other. Now, we love each other already, but important to note, if you don't talk to each other, those bridges don't happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think therein lies some critical piece and concern. I mean, because hate is in the vocabulary. What's the rhetoric of that? What are the consequences of that? I mean, here is, to back off of that. Here are disagreements. Here are issues. But hate really drives us to, the bottom line saying, no, to you, your being, your identity, your, the fullness of you, such that there's no room, does it appear? No room for the talking you're talking about. I mean, I went this past summer. It was closing the play. It was at the Lincoln Center. It won a Tony. Our friend Mike is an aficionado of Broadway and film. So time's up. Can you guess what play I'm about to talk about? Oslo. And Oslo, it was about the Oslo Accords. And so here you have, spirited, by some, Norwegian, diplomats, Israeli and Palestinian folks who over, more than a year met and parlayed in a way that got them to the Oslo Accords.
Brought them to the table.
Which is kind of a moment in time, and it didn't hold, and here are fissures and tensions. And they had to contend with. And you know who I mean when I say the voice was, I am not going to negotiate or talk at all with people who kill innocent children. Okay? I am not going to talk with people who have taken my land, my birthright. Okay? Yet, they were talking.
But Yossi Kleiner Levy was right there,
doing
what he had to do.
There we go. And Rabin, was quoted as saying, as it kind of went back to the, the leadership.
The great soldier of peace.
Well, there we are. And he said, when it comes to peace, you don't make peace with your friends, you make peace with your enemies. Now, goodness, what does that mean? What can that tell us? When we live in a day and age where, look at those who would be mongers of hate on the streets of Charlottesville, okay, or elsewhere in the midst of, a shooter from the towers at the Mandalay Hotel in Las Vegas, or a 28-year-old who commandeers a Home Depot truck just 2 days ago. What of that hate that has no time, no tolerance for the existence of others?
And of course, Rabin is then shot, assassinated. Why? Hate. Because we can't appreciate the dignity of difference. It takes courage to make peace.
It truly does. And so here comes language and rhetoric, even from the highest office of the land. I have a poster given to me by my sister-in-law, who's a great educator, secondary ed, been in public school, private school, trained in seminary. So Kate, thank you for this. But the poster, I said, can I have this? And she was kind of, said, sure.
What's the poster say?
The poster said, big wind-up, here it comes. Thanks for your attention on this, okay? Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will hurt me. It's kind of like, yes,
rhyme,
the language does hurt. And we kind of are so wrapped in that, such that the bullying, the voice of vengeance and hate, has consequences. Can we find in this Trump era, in this post 9/11 era, in this new normal era, can we find language that, that accepts, without denigrating, denying, dismissing, demonizing. There's an alliteration for you. Let me see if I can repeat that. Denigrating, denying, diminishing, demonizing.
And what's the answer? The answer is this. Remember Lin-Manuel Miranda's sonnet to his wife? But when he accepted it, I think it was the Tonys, right?
Oh, man.
Right? But love is love is love is love is love is love. Cannot, cannot deny. I forget it. But it was. That's the answer.
Yeah.
There's an answer.
Yeah. Now,
So,
right about now, I mean, you can say, okay, size these two guys up. They happen to be friends. They happen to be clergy. What we just heard from the rabbi in terms of love, is it mere rhetoric? Does it have consequences? Might it even be policy and procedure? Rabbi Jeff and Martin Luther King, one and the same. If you and Wayne don't say this on Sunday, I'm glad to come by and remind you both. King talked about the strength to love, courage to love.
Yeah.
And it means it's not the hypothetical. If anything, it means avoiding the denial of someone's existence.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
We are called in our traditions, to love one another.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we're having, birthday parties and sock hops and,
Sock hops.
What did I say that? Where did that come from?
Sock hops. Sock hops.
Where did that come from? Where did that come from?
Okay, well, all right.
Okay.
He means.
Or that we're not making, making nice. Let's
He
move on
means
quickly.
disco balls. That's
There
what
we
he's
go.
going
There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. Yeah.
You know how much I love you that I can make funny.
I just lost our millennials with that comment. Okay, come back to LAC. Okay.
Sock hops. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to tell us what a sock hop is?
No, only if I have a chance to talk about Stranger Things, that new Netflix, into its second series.
Oh my God.
Which is cutting edge.
I saw one episode.
I'm reaching hard to regain my credibility here, and they do a little swift thing, kind of looking in retro ways.
And they're in the 80s, right? They're in the 80s.
In the 80s. And Winona Ryder kind of comes back from her Age of Innocence flick with Martin Scorsese.
So you were just doing a reference to a past that was really predates
and,
your existence.
And that's the historical perspective that you get with the Reverend and the Rabbi here at Faith and Eggs of the Diner, okay?
Oh, my God.
And we have a reading list for you that can be supplied by our wonderful producer, Mike Charles. Mike, take it away. Mike was a sock hop phenom back in the 60s. Yeah. There we go.
So I would just say,
I say that was pretty good recovery.
So
back to you.
Transitioning to be able to say, how do you, it says, and you shall love the Lord your God, the Shema, and into the Ve'ahavta, Deuteronomy chapter 6. And how do you love God? The rabbis ask. You love your fellow human being. So it's not a big jump. So this year at Larchmont Temple, one of the things that we're doing is our congregational learning theme is struggling with Jewish spirituality or searching for Jewish spirituality. What is spirituality? It's an avant-garde term. There's the term on the internet, and certainly in spiritual circles, the acronym SBNR. What is SBNR? Spiritual, but not religious.
Oh yeah.
Which is a whole category of folks who just believe that, well, they're spiritual, but they're not going to go for any organized religion. They're not going to go to any church or step foot in their local mosque or go to congregations and synagogue, because they don't want an organized, approach. They don't want any catechism or dogma. We're all about questions. We're all about the spiritual search. We're all about welcoming the widest possible spectrum, and trying to find that sense of spirituality in your life. So we're exploring it this year in all kinds of ways. And one of the ways that we're doing it is doing living room learning. So I just hosted my a three-session deal. I did it Sunday evening. The Schwartzmans, my dear friends Michael and Lisa, were gracious enough to open their home. And we had 20, 24, 25 folks who came around their table, sort of like, a Passover Seder without the matzah. And it was great. And we had so much fun. And we explored, it was called Struggling for Spirituality. And Rabbi Miller's going to do it, Cantor is going to do it with sort of a different target group. Because I had the sock hop people in my group. They were the folks who were probably the 50s, 60s, 70s something. And it was just a great open dialogue Because people have questions. Well, what do you mean by spirituality? What do you mean by mindfulness? Is that Jewish? What does Judaism teach about God's presence in the middle of tragedy and suffering and sickness? Or how do we understand, ourselves as spiritual human beings? What happens if I say I don't believe in God? Or not that God anyway? Or how do you align it? And it was just wonderfully open, affirming discussion. Why is it that God is present at moments of deepest pain? Or that we feel the need for something? Well, because people get caught up in the G word, as I call it, and you got to be careful. So this year at Larchmont Temple, we're struggling with that and having such a good time with it. Larry Hoffman, one of the great teachers of our time, Rabbi Larry Hoffman, is going to be coming in 2 weekends, on the 17th through 19th, as our fall scholar in residence, and he is just dynamite. And one of his talks is called "Yes, Virginia, There Is a Jewish Spirituality," which is to say, surprise, surprise, it's for real. But how you understand it is up to your understanding of the world. And I was wondering about the parallels of. I know that Larchmont Avenue Church is a place where open dialogue, conversation, searching, struggling happens.
Yeah.
With faith, because that's what faith's about. And I was thinking, what I really should have done, and there's still time to do it in the year, we should have done an interfaith group.
Yeah.
To see different approaches.
Well, a couple things. One, on the interfaith note, I don't want to miss the opportunity in this segment of Faith and Eggs to note a date, November 19th at 7 p.m. at the St. Thomas Episcopal Church.
Yes.
The houses of worship across the community, and that is Larchmont as well as Mamaroneck as well as Larchmont, will gather for the community Thanksgiving service.
Yes.
And the subtitle on that appears to be Standing Together in Faith. And so, yes, to interfaith dialogue, encounter, discussion, sharing. We, among other clergy, help to lead a service. Great thanks to Reverends Carol Gadsden, the rector at St. Thomas, and Reverend Tammy Burks, the associate rector, for the hosting and hospitality there. And we, among others, will present a service of, again, with houses of worship represented across the community, that will note the issues and concerns of the day, including immigration refugees, including gun violence, including sexism, racism, and natural disasters. And so here we are together. We'll have a chance for prayer and lifting up the concerns. It's not, a hypothetical sense of community coming together, making nice and just rhetorical. It's not American civil religion. There we are.
We're getting down and dirty.
Yeah. But I have to say, to the lead question that Rabbi Jeff,
which I really am interested to,
To be sure, I think for all of us, it's interesting that you said spiritual but not religious. We have been actually reading, sharing at the Larchmont Avenue Church, and several of us, and I'm glad to open it to the fuller congregation.
Yes.
A book with that title by a pastor named Lillian Daniel, who's Disciples of Christ pastor, wonderful, progressive, smart. She's a pastor in Indiana, and the title of her book is Spiritual but Not Religious. And she started on this because of the sense of quest and pursuit that people have, without a sense of wanting to join or be a part of the organization. Particularly, this is more, of Gen X folks, of younger baby boomers, but millennials going forward. It's not necessarily where you would find the sock hop generation.
Right.
Whom we've been in discussion about here.
Right.
But nonetheless, here are people who would say, I really don't really want to join your church, but I have questions and I'm glad to pursue. I'm glad to share and inquire. So it's not a matter of joining organizationally, affiliating, but what about the sharing of that? And what's notable about the population is when it comes to an interest, a quest, even a conviction about God, among millennial folk and others, it's just as high as it ever was, except they're not the joiners or belongers to the organization.
Yeah.
Now that's kind of hard for us who are in organized religion.
Yes.
I can talk about my tradition that way, because our folks are eager to say, oh, please come be with us, and we hope you'll join.
Yeah.
But the fact is, and I actually looked at some of the numbers on this, over the past 3 years, we have had, and we have visitors kind of note and recognize themselves. We've had about 200 folks who have kind of, in one way or another, come to LAC for the first time.
Okay.
A lesser number of them have actually
And
joined the
joined,
congregation. And that's quite all right.
Yeah.
That's quite all right. I rather, and this comes from experience over the years, I mean, to be a university chaplain was, to meet people where they are,
Yes.
to talk and teach in the great rabbinical tradition. Could I say it this way? The great rabbinical tradition of Jesus.
Yes,
I mean,
you
there was
could.
the
You could.
peripatetic stuff.
Yeah.
And you could speak to other rabbis about other rabbis in that zone. But this is what I really experience more and more, such that here comes, the connection relationally, that brings us together as a congregation.
Yeah.
Welcoming others, gathering
But
those
the whole welcome process and getting them, and relational is key. I think what you say, it's about how do we engage in that dialogue? Because here's the mistaken assumption, or the operative assumption is, they have established dogma. They want me to believe X. I can't do that because that's not my thing.
Yeah.
So, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We have 840 households, just under, I think. We have a lot of Jews.
Yeah.
A lot of people who aren't Jewish but are connected to, so who are questioning, struggling, wondering, doubting, thinking, challenging, trying to figure out how does it all work in a world today, because many of them learned stuff as kids. You're a bar mitzvah kid. What are you, 13? If you don't keep going after that, you have a 13-year-old adolescent understanding of Judaism when you're 48.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Or 64. Or, so it's the challenge of how do you grow up and into a more mature. And we're doing things like, Rabbi Miller's doing Shabbat yoga in the morning. We have spirituality through music. So there's all kinds of pathways, but I just think we have to open up the way we explore and the way we frame in order for people to understand it is an open tent.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned the yoga. I mean, props and shout out to an LIC member, Robin Giacomo, who some of you know. Robin is a yoga teacher. She's a life coach. She's really has a ministry of holistic health in various ways.
Awesome.
And so we have a yoga group at the Larchmont Avenue Church led by Robin, and maybe we should have our yoga groups come together.
Yeah.
I mean, I quite seriously, there's a great option in terms of, again, here's the sense of, the spiritual quest and the wholeness thereof that isn't bent or predicated on the fundamental, the dogma, the doctrine. One of the things, and this is we're coming to the end of our program, but this is really kind of an ongoing discussion for us, and it really opens us up to maybe the next program, or maybe even a special seminar welcome that we host.
Al Roker will be on that program.
Oh, Al
I'll tell you
Roker,
right now.
there we go. But it's, the bane and the pain of fundamentalism in the world about us.
Yeah.
I mean, the extremes of all of our traditions.
Yeah.
I mean, Karen Armstrong has a wonderful book, I've cited it here, The Battle for God. And she looks at these world traditions, the major ones represented here and others, but also the minor ones. She even notes that in Confucianism, there's a radical Confucianism strain that would basically say, I'm right, and here's what my belief is predicated on, and you're wrong. And then we go into that alliteration of the 4 Ds that I mentioned, ending with demonization. Scary, really scary and violent stuff. And so what of?
One of Us, I think it's called, is it's a documentary with a docudrama where they're following members of the Hasidic community, the ultra-Orthodox Hasidic community who try to get out and do get out, but the process of leaving and I remember watching
Wow.
some
Oh,
show
that's
that my
interesting. That's
my
interesting.
wife may remember me from Blessing. Susan would make me watch about the Amish leaving the Amish
Oh my
community.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yeah,
But so
yeah.
there's a similarity there.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
a closed sect.
Right.
Make no mistake now. Are all Hasidic Jews like that? No, but
yeah.
the majority of the way it functions, boy, ultra-Orthodox Hasidism in Borough Park in Muncie,
Yeah.
you want to leave, you want to see the world in a different way,
Yeah.
not there.
Yeah, and such folks would turn to Rabbi Jeff and turn to me and say, "What kind of Jew are you? What kind of Christian are you?"
By the way, I would be, and I am, much closer aligned on every front with this man.
Yeah. But well, and vice versa. I mean, I think too. Gosh, here we are. We're kind of beating the clock, ready to conclude. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Lake. But the names of these people we mentioned who have, dare I say, broken out and left the sect and left the cult.
Yeah.
One such person who I've been reading about recently is a woman named Megan Phelps, who is part of the Westboro Baptist Church.
Oh, yes,
Who has been
yes.
everywhere,
Yeah.
protesting things like the death of U.S. soldiers, gay and lesbian folk, moderate, liberal, Protestants and others, in vehement ways that are really kind of atrocious, as they're in the face of grieving mothers and fathers whose sons and daughters happen to be, homosexual, saying that that's the wrath of God, that brought you down.
But this is a woman who was originally in that church.
That's right.
and
Did you
then-
hear that TED Talk?
I saw that.
Yeah. Quite something.
Quite compelling.
Gosh, how do we wrap this up?
You know what I think we say? We
wise
say, you know
as
what?
serpents, gentle as doves.
We say love is love is love is love is love.
There we go.
You know.
And Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love. I like to correct people who think it's the city of brotherly shove. Just a thought.
Oh my God.
And
oh
I grew up.
I would
I
never
grew up
throw
making.
Philly under the bus.
I grew
never.
up making that message. And I have to say that because it's the closest thing I'll get to talking about the Philadelphia Phillies, who are the worst team in baseball this year.
But who's talking about
But who's
that?
talking about that?
Well, listen.
It's been great. Oh my gosh.
So good to see you.
I
and sit
hope
with
we.
you.
I hope this has
Phyllis,
been
we haven't had a chance to
informing and
talk in the
illuminating
past
for
few
you.
weeks.
Yeah.
This is it.
Call
You're
us. Tell us what
you're
you think
getting the real
about
thing.
this.
And by
Give
the
us
way,
some ideas.
By the way, at our sock hop, there'll be Heinz ketchup.
Okay, let's go to the tapes. Mike Charles at the sock hop.
Roll
Roll it.
Brother.
Oh man,
Love you.
this was fun. Alrighty, here we
You're the
go.
best.
God
You're the
bless.
best. God bless.